Today we are joined by Katie Fletcher, founder and director of Balanced Education Consultancy. Katie is a highly experienced SEND specialist with a strong background as a SENCO in mainstream primary schools, where she's supported children with additional needs to thrive. She's taken that passion even further through her own consultancy, working with schools and neurodiverse learners to create more inclusive and supportive environments. A real pleasure to sit down with Katie Fletcher. I hope you all enjoy listening. Introducing the After School Club podcast with Max Pembleton.
Hi Katie.
Hi.
How you doing?
I'm good, thank you.
Good. Thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate you making the journey. I just want to start off with, I guess the most obvious question. Can you tell us what you do day to day? And then we're going to get into your journey and how you got to doing what you're doing. So let's start with that.
Yeah, no, I'd love to share that with you. So I am the owner of a business called Balanced Education Consultancy Limited. Bit of a mouthful, so we call it Balance for short.
Okay.
And I set up that company earlier this year to go full-time self-employed based on my experience of working with children with SEND in mainstream primary schools.
Just for those that might not know.
Yes.
What's SEND? Let's just
Yeah. So I was a SENCO, which stands for Special Educational Needs Coordinator. And that was my full-time job at the time, and supporting children across primary schools who might need a little bit more support with their learning, and trying to make the school experience more manageable for them in lots of different ways. So that was my kind of prime area of goal. And then I decided to be brave enough to take on, self-employment and have my own company and spread that magic a little bit wider.
Yeah.
That's kind of where I support. I currently support a range of people. I support children, I support parents, families, schools, and touching onto some businesses now as well, just sort of explain to them about SEND. Sorry, I'm going to abbreviate it as that.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Yeah.
In terms of across different remits. I also work part-time as a specialist teacher, which means I work for a company that support children across Lancashire who might be neurodiverse, so particularly children.
So that's where the accent's from. Lancashire.
The accent is the broader Lancashire accent, absolutely. And so I support there, and I actually did that a little bit last year, and that role has sort of strengthened and become a bit more part of my day-to-day life these days. And then also a new venture that I'm currently not started, but I'm on the very teetering edge of it, is I am an associate teacher for the University of Cumbria. So I'm going to be training up new SENCOs as part of the MPQ that they offer via the Church of England. So
amazing.
Lots of exciting possibilities ahead.
Absolutely. And I think something else, that we've got ahead of us, which we've spoke about and plan on speaking about later today as well, is the training of our candidates. This is going to go out to a lot of our candidates here at Link 3. And a lot of them actually, some of them will have SEND experience. Some of them might not know what SEND is. Others, have a planned journey ahead of them, but our job is to obviously upskill them, prepare them as best that they can to go into whatever setting it is that they want to go in. So for everyone listening, some really exciting news to come with that as well, and hopefully you'll be delivering on that. So looking forward to that. Before we then get into a little bit more about the business and the leap and how you felt about all of that, because I know how daunting it is, can we just rewind all the way back and speak about your school experience? So just tell us, what were you like at school?
I was probably I was quite a high attainer, so things came quite easily and naturally to me. Starting right back at primary school, I went to a local primary school in a small town, in the village I grew up in. My auntie was a teacher there, so it was part of our community that
Taught you?
Taught me.
Yeah.
Which was, I think from the time out, so that quite tricky, because it was always like, oh, we'll go and see your auntie, if there's anything. Not that there was, because I'm a big I don't like getting things wrong. So I was probably that model student.
Yeah.
Studious when I needed to be, had a really good mix of friends. Didn't really probably show the potential I always have. I'm one of those that I surprise people sometimes. So I plod along, and then it comes out at the end, and everyone goes, "Oh, right, I
The
did
dark horse, the underdog.
yeah." So school, I enjoyed school. There are some elements of, I think something that really sticks with me, and something that's really brought into my practice is words are so key to me. So even words that are spoken to me in primary school sort of linger and hang on. So it's, the word experience, or I look back and I go, oh, right, okay. But on the whole, really, really positive experience. High school, moved with, my peer circle into another high school in a couple of towns away. And yeah, used a lot of sport within my day. So loved playing netball, spent most of my lunch times playing that whenever possible. Got stuck into different extracurricular things. And generally just had a nice time.
It's a really positive experience.
Yeah, I do look back, and I don't regret. Don't get me wrong. I wouldn't want to go back and live those again, like the teenage years at higher school.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't go, oh, I disliked it or anything like that. I think a lot of it, maybe I was finding my feet in some ways. But yeah.
I know a lot of people that I speak to say, oh, I'd love to go back to school, the best years of my life. And I think I'm with you, really. Although I like school, I got on well at school.
Yeah.
I also don't think I would want to go back, if I'm being completely honest. There were elements that I loved. But, there's been things outside of school that I've gone on to, which I love even more. So what I'm interested to know as well about your school experience is, although it sounds really, really positive, I'm sure that, like anyone, you probably faced some challenges or something like that. Can you tell us, did you face any challenges? And if so, what sort of challenges did you face throughout your school life?
Yeah, I think looking back at where I was in school, there was probably a little bit of masking going on in terms of my there's no diagnosis of any neurodiversity, but because I'm in that world now and I see it and I live and breathe it, when I look back at certain things that may have happened, it was going, oh, maybe that was that, or that perspective. I struggled a little bit with social dynamics. I think there was always that desire and need to try and fit in, and to sometimes the detriment of my well-being. So, and I think that's something that has, it's taken me till now, in early adulthood to sort of understand and unpick a little bit. But the biggest challenges I faced mainly came when I was at sort of A level. I moved on. I remember getting my GCSEs, surprising everyone with what I came out with. It's one of those I've probably surprised myself. And I remember going, I was planning on going to a sixth form with lots of my friends. And then I just went, do you know what? I want a fresh start. So I remember being on the day of results day going to a sixth form that I didn't have any real intention going. And I look back and it was probably the benefit that it was a smaller setting. I knew some people, but not a lot. And that was really probably advantageous in
helped you grow
education forward. Yeah. So in terms of that experience, at the same time, things went on at home. And I remember the biggest kind of bit that I had to overcome was that, and managing that at the time of taking exams, where I have quite a perfectionist nature. So having to sit exams where I needed to do the best, but it wasn't maybe in the mental space to do that because of external situations. Kind of brought in opportunities for other people to come in and me to go, help a little bit, And one teacher in particular, she was a science teacher, and I think she probably was the first teacher, and it took to sixth form to find a teacher that heard me and got me and just was like, I'm here for you. And that felt really unnatural, but also at the same time really liberating, that there's a grown-up out here that actually cares about me.
Someone outside of your immediate family. And
that shift and then it was sort of moving on to university and all the independence that brings and dynamics that brings. But I love learning. Like that is one thing that is sort of really true to my heart, is I just love it. I could absorb.
We're always learning, right?
I'm always learning. There's nothing that I know lots about, but I'm naturally curious into that. So that's sort of allowing, the further education opportunities just was what I was naturally drawn to.
Yeah, and I love that you just mentioned a word there, curious.
Yes.
And it was many years ago now when I first started out working in education. So I came from a health and fitness background, and although I loved education, I was familiar with education, I had a passion for education. There was a moment where we were speaking about a group of students, and someone in the room labelled them as bad students or naughty students, right? And the person that we were speaking to stopped them and actually said, no,
Yeah.
they're curious students. So you shouldn't ever use those terms. They're curious. And actually, you've just used that, which brought it back for me. So really, really interesting.
It's the power of words, isn't it? Small kind of incremental things like that the power of educators have. If you think about the space and the time that children have in the school day, you're talking of 6 hours of their day. And if you look at the kind of number of hours that children are in education, you look at 10% of their life, that's quite, although in the grand scheme of things, 10% it's small, but if you've got people that are labeling you as that and creating your self-belief about yourself, that's so that kind of, I'm going off on a tangent, but
please do.
What epitomizes Zen for me is not labeling, being curious as adults about the children that we're with. So if a child's saying this or doing this, what are they trying to tell me? Because there's a need there.
And things stick with you. So although 10%, it's a big percentage, but also a small percentage in the grand scheme of things, but it's also at the start of your life. And again, one experience that I do remember is my brother got permanently excluded, wasn't the best student, had his own challenges. And as soon as I got to secondary school, I remember really, really clearly a teacher said to me, "Oh, you're a Pemberton." And I thought, I said, "Mum, what does she mean?" Straight away. But actually, they soon realised my qualities and all the rest of it, and I had a great experience at school. But little things like that, you remember for forever. And we're constantly speaking here about the impact and the positive impact that we're having on not only candidates and their careers and the professional side of things, but young people. That's what we're doing it for, the impact. And you mentioned, and it was going to be one of my next questions, your science teacher.
Yes.
So straight away, you remember your science teacher, right? For the impact that she had on you. Yeah. Just tell me, what was her name? And more in more detail, why do you remember her like that?
Yeah. So her name was Erica Goodwin, and she was. We'd had a bit of an experience. So it was A-level biology that I was doing, and we'd had an experience where the teaching prior to that maybe wasn't as effective as it needed to be, and we needed to catch up to kind of meet that. So she'd come in, and she had a way about her that was relational. It was about, I want to support you. I'm coming from you where I know that we might need to do this and look a little bit differently. So I remember her giving up time in the holidays to come and do a booster class with the cohort,
right?
With the science team. We did it's crazy, isn't it, what you remember, but we did a lesson on photosynthesis, and she got loads of Skittles and sweets, and she would explain photosynthesis to me using these sweets. When we did it, and it just, that shift and that different way of thinking and that different way of kind of getting into her students was really helpful. And at the same time, there was a bit of pastoral support from her as well. Like I say, was going through something at home. There was, a parental breakdown. And there wasn't a parental breakdown. There was a breakdown in my parents' relationship.
Yes, yeah.
Prior to that, and I found that really tough in terms of managing that. And she just reached out to me and said, "Look, I've got a place where you can go if you need a space to just be you for a time. Just let me know." It was offering it on a really personal, but at the same time maintaining those professional boundaries. Just knowing I know you're struggling. I'm here for you.
Yeah.
Let me help in any way I can.
Yeah. Sometimes you just need that reassurance, and actually that these people aren't just teachers, or they're real people. Amazing to hear. Thanks for sharing that with us. Really appreciate that.
She hears this. I'm always trying to reach out to her.
We'll have to send it.
Yeah, we'll send it around. But she was just the first person that heard and saw me. So
amazing. And the fact that you remember her forever says it all. So thank you. Okay, so we go on to then university.
Yes.
And tell us a little bit more about university. What did you study?
Yeah.
And then you went on into your teaching career, I believe.
Yeah.
So tell us about that part of your life.
Of course. So again, went and was looking at university options. And it was when my form tutor remember saying to me, like, have you considered Durham? And me being me, went, no, I don't think, and that's out of my remit. And she was like, go for it. So
Yeah.
I ended up putting Durham down as one of my choices. And they offered an applied psychology degree. I'd already studied psychology at AS level and A level and fell in love with it really. Like the way people's brain works and the neuroscience behind that just makes
Fascinating.
it. I love it. So when I had the opportunity to do the degree level, it was really exciting. I hadn't intended on doing an applied psychology degree actually at first. It just sort of came up and I was like, oh, that's a different kind of route to what I thought of. Because I think deep in kind of my progression of where I considered going was looking at an educational psychology and becoming an educational psychologist. So when that option came up to look at it at an applied level, which basically means in my third year, I was able to tailor it to a sort of a career pathway.
Right.
Some of my fellow students like pursued a forensic route if they wanted to look at forensic psychology, clinical psychology and things like that. So I had the opportunity to pursue it from an educational perspective. So knowing that in my head, my career might lead down to educational psychology, knowing that teaching would allow me the experience to gain within, that's part of the criteria to apply on the course to do that was really exciting. And I focused on that within at my dissertation level. So I was managed to go into schools. We looked at visual spatial working memory,
Right.
looking at the link that has between children's maths ability, which was really exciting. Getting to work with children, looking at it from a real psychology perspective and analysing data. Again, things that make me tick.
Yeah.
So then I knew that I wanted to pursue teaching after that. And I did the PGCE route in.
So an additional year at uni?
Additional year at another university, so I came a bit closer to home. And it's an intense year, you're learning how to be a teacher alongside placements in 1 year. It's crazy really to think that you can condense it.
Yeah.
But that's where we're at, and then managed to secure a placement in the school where I actually did my final placement in, and became part of the furniture there. So the ethos and the values of the school just really hit home with me and have really been the foundations of where balanced have gone and where, those core values of what I embedded there at that school have kind of led me to pursue the routes that I've taken and the opportunities there. So which, I'll be eternally grateful for in terms of that.
How long were you there?
So I was there for, I think, about 7 years, and then branched away to do an assistant head role at another school in another authority. Faced a setback, and had to sort of overcome that. And then went back to the same school,
Right.
and was there just till
Okay.
a few months ago.
And the setback you faced, are you able to share anything around that?
Of course, I think again, going back to my perfectionist nature and things like that, I've learned to realize that I'm not everyone's cup of tea, and I'm going to some kind of level of internal manifestation with it. That's okay. I'm not going to be, there are some people that aren't going to get me, some are going to understand, are going to feel like I may be too much sometimes. And I think it was just a situation of that. I didn't maybe fit the mold of
within that organization.
And I've had to take a lot of time to process that and come to that kind of rationale, because I will naturally go to self, diminishing myself, as many people will. But then equally at the same time, it was such a learning curve where I learned so much about it. So that resilience to bounce back from that was something that was really determined to do. And part of it needed me to go home to the school where I was nurtured, I was safe really. And that's again one of the core values that runs through why I do what I do, because it replicates in what we do for children in schools as well. So I overcame that, and then sort of last year, that revelation of, do you know what, you can do this inner self-confidence just sort of became what I was going to propel myself into, which allowed me to get to where I am right now, sat and doing a podcast with yourself. So
yeah, and I always speak to people about self-belief and self-confidence, and actually, where does it come from? Because I think we're all human. We all have doubts. We all doubt ourselves, and can I go and do that? Imposter syndrome and all the rest of it. Think, in my opinion, it comes from your experiences. Had a lot to that. What are your thoughts on where your belief has come from? Because obviously now you're running your own organization, doing amazing things. So where has that belief come from to go and take those steps?
I think so. I'm a big advocate of Fern Cotton's Happy Place Festival and then the Happy Place podcast that she does, and part of it has been going to events like that where I've been surrounded by people who promote that, looking at manifestation, looking at that inner belief of and supporting that inner confidence and practices to support that. So a lot of it came from there. And then just trying to listen to those voices because it's so easy to listen to the voices that are negative or say, oh, you can't do that,
When they're always going to be there.
They're always going to be there, whether it's coming from actually somebody in person or actually you're just internalizing that. So to listen to people saying to me, oh, you just know so much about, send and I can't believe what's in your brain. I was hearing comments like that and I was hanging on to those, writing them down, going, right, someone said that, you should stay and use that in your power. But that's been sort of really incremental. I also did a self-love rave.
Right.
Which kind of...
I've never heard of one of them.
There's a wonderful lady called Caroline Kell, and she is called DJ Flourish, and she was at Happy Place Festival and led a self-love rave, and I'd booked tickets. So basically what it is listening to headphones, a bit of a silent disco, but words of empowerment coming through that as you're raving. So and that kind of, I was going to it with a friend, and my friend couldn't make it at the last moment, and had this option of going, do you go and do that by yourself, or do you go and cancel because it's that big easy route? And I remember doing it, and that for me was a bit of a life-changing moment of going, do you know what, if you can go and dance like an absolute idiot in a crowd full of people but with headphones on, then do you know what other potential have you got out there? And I'd also done a lot of work around with this end work that I do, looking at authenticity, looking at allowing people to be the true versions of themselves and the freedom to do that, which is what for me, good inclusion empowers, that without fear of judgment, without fear of that, and everything kind of just jigsawed into place to the point where I just going, just what?
Why not?
Somebody else will try it and probably not do as good a job as you. So go and do it because you've got all these skills, and that's kind of where I went to.
Amazing. There's a few things that resonate with me in there with what you just said. Actually, firstly, I think manifestation and visualization are massive for that, and I think one of my favorite things is just to visualize, what I want, what I'm trying to achieve, work towards it. But at the very start of that, what you always find is reactions like, you can't do that, or no, you're not going to do that, you're not going to be able to do that. And I remember those comments. You remembering some of the positive comments. I remember those ones. And then as I'm doing that and I'm on that journey, I think, I remember you saying that. And actually how it changes over the years of when you've hit that goal or you're about to hit that goal, same person or people, comments are totally different. And it's crazy to me, but it's proving people wrong, I guess, is a big part of it. And then also the self-talk, those sort of comments, for me with my fitness outside of work, I listen to stuff like that talking to me all the time, and very, very similar, apart from not in a raving environment, I guess. But I'd never heard of that, so sounds really, really interesting.
Brilliant experience.
Great. Okay, and then so you've had your teaching career, you've got all your experiences from teaching, good and bad, that you've learnt from, and then all of a sudden Balanced is born, and it's a big step to set up your own business. It's daunting, you're not quite sure what's in front of you and all the rest of it. So what was the moment where actually you thought, no, I'm going to set up my own business. And how have you found it since you've set up Balanced?
Absolutely good question. I think for me, it was hearing those people talk again, reassurance that, you do know what you're talking about, and having that feedback from my day-to-day job as well, as Senko, knowing that I was supporting young people and families in a really positive way, and I was seeing the direct impact of that on a daily basis. And I think knowing that I had this really great network of people around me, from being family, my husband and, my family life, in terms of him advocating and allowing me that opportunity. But I had professionals around me going, oh, do you know what? I know where you're at. I can see. So I think I've been really blessed in the fact that I've had this network and safety net around me to go, do you know what? If it doesn't go wrong, you have, and it doesn't work out, then you've tried, or I'll speak to them about guidance. So I've had some people who've worked as, semi-mentors along the way. Interestingly, I dropped today as my Senko role. That was from January last year. So I knew that I wanted to sort of commit time to building up the business. And managed to secure a role as a specialist teacher as part of an external company reach out. And having that team around me has also given me the confidence, because I'm not on my own. I'm not as much as I am balanced on my own, and I'm building up networks and pathways, and the opportunities I'm creating via that, and the conversations I'm having with people is great. I know that I still got that network around me. So I think that's really key. And alongside of that, I'm having people that are choosing me, and people coming to find me or knowing, because of how I presented myself in my job and my work ethic, that they're going, oh no, actually we want you. And that was a big step. Lynn McHenry once reached out saying to me, I'd really like you as part of my team.
Yeah.
Because she'd have said, did you see the advert? And I was like, yeah, I did, but I'm not, I don't have enough experience. And she just went, are you joking?
Yeah, get yourself in.
And conversations I've had thereafter, with other people just who have worked with me in my role, and then I'm, just supporting that moving forward. So knowing that people are choosing me is another thing that I'm holding on to. You know what, you can do it.
Absolutely.
Made an impression somewhere along the line.
Yeah.
So just hold on to that.
Absolutely. And the people that do reach out to you then, just so everyone, fully understands the business and how you operate.
Yeah.
Are we looking at students, parents? Who are the main sort of people that are reaching out to you?
Yeah, a bit of a mixture, really. I've got friends that know that that's my kind of level of expertise. I've got those, remits within my own family. I've got people that I've worked with as my role as Senko, who work for external companies, and it's just looking at how, like, I'm a big advocate of spreading the word and raising awareness, and that's a kind of key value for me at Balanced, is looking at how I can inform people, help them understand, and help young people advocate for themselves is really key. So there's some schools that reach out, asking for training opportunities, knowing I have a level of expertise within. But there's parents who just are so baffled by the system, or just need support, who reach out to me and say, please, can you come and help me with just this paperwork? I'm a bit stuck, and I'll just hold their hand through that process.
Yeah. So just on that point then, with parents, because there's probably a lot of parents that are going to be listening that are potentially facing these sorts of challenges. So let's say a parent comes to you, and there could be a wide range of challenges that they're facing.
Yeah.
What is then the process for you to say, okay, yeah, I can help. This is how I'm going to help. And I guess these are the details around where my support can be used. Can you tell us how that would work with a parent?
Yeah. So initially, a lot of parental kind of conversations just come up in general passing.
Yeah.
I was having a conversation with someone in the swimming pool the other day, and I don't know how I was chatting, ended up getting onto that conversation. But it initially starts with that initial I'm really struggling, or my child's really struggling, what do you know is out there? And then I'll either signpost them in the right direction, or particularly around, things like EHCP paperwork, or even the jargon of SEND. It can feel really overwhelming for a parent perspective. But so using me as an advocate to kind of say, well, by law, this is what should be happening, or this is a really effective way to communicate that in the paperwork. So, they're able to achieve the right amount of support is really beneficial. And then I can either directly support them or signpost them in the right direction.
Yeah.
That's where I tend to go with parents.
Yeah.
Because the world of SEND is really overfacing. And when parents are already feeling the brunt of a system where they might feel helpless, I suppose that you've either got two ways to look at it. You've got some parents that are absolutely driven by, I'm advocating for my child, I know exactly what to do, but then there's a real kind of network of parents that feel lost in a system, or
if you've not got experience with
that. So a lot of the time I'm just holding their hand, guiding them through processes, supporting when necessary, and just that is really, in a really kind of judgmental way. Going, I hear you, I see you, I know this is tough, I know it's tough for you, I know it's tough for your child, I know you face that sense of adversity all the time, so let's have a look at how we can support you together.
Amazing. And you mentioned there in that sentence about the brunt of the system, without going into obviously too much detail and naming any names or anything. Can you give us an example of maybe where a parent has approached you, had a conversation with you, explain a little bit about the challenges they were actually facing with the system and why they were facing those challenges, and how you, I guess, overcome and help them navigate through that?
Yeah, absolutely. So one particular one is quite a recent one actually that comes to mind, and it's a parent who's been struggling with two children in school at the moment, and as their children are getting older, school is sort of reporting back going, oh, your child's not working where they should. But equally on the other side of that, she doesn't know what they're doing in place to support her. So I'm sort of guiding her saying, well, looking at developmentally, because there's got to be that allowance of looking at children from a developmental perspective and what's coming from, where they are in terms of their stages of development. So I'll guide in terms of advice of what I'd be looking out for. So if I have my Senko hat on right now, this is what I'd be asking, this is what I'd be looking at, this is what I'd be exploring in terms of identifying that need. So I think for that parent in particular, it was about unpicking what's actually going on for their child and why are they maybe struggling to read at the age of correct here for, what is the barrier that's there that's preventing that? Is it, and I've supported her in terms of advising of pathways maybe to pursue them. There's a real myth that having a diagnosis changes everything, and a lot, and to some extent it's true, but it's not the be all and end all. So as much as I'll advocate for parents if they wanted to pursue, a pathway for a diagnosis route, I will support, I particularly supported her with the narrative on what to communicate to the GP. And to the Senko, so I provided those. This is what I'd say. And really, because you've got to be really mindful that there's also a professional on the other side of that who's probably trying their best as well. Without stepping on toes, but just guiding them through that process. And then I recently supported her in writing an application for the parental voice for an educational healthcare plan, which I've abbreviated previously as EHCP. So it's tricky because there's so much within the world of SEND at the minute that feels really unstable, and really conflicts from a government level in terms of that, which can feel really daunting and really uneasy for a lot of people in the profession and parents as well. So it's just guiding them through that process, but being there and saying, look, I hear you, I know what you're saying, this is what I would do. So that's how I've used my guidance.
Okay, great. Yeah, I think as a business, we've certainly experienced high growth within SEN. Definitely since COVID.
Yes.
Definitely since COVID. And actually we're having more and more requests for specialist teachers and people that specialise in SEN. So really, really interesting to hear. And in terms of mainstream, is there enough support there, do you think?
it's a really tricky situation in mainstream at the minute. And I really, because I go into schools quite often within my specialist teacher capacity, there is such a level of teachers wanting to be the best for these children, but knowing that the restraints are around funding or around resources that are available, or even, I've been in a school this week where a teacher just said, I just don't know. I don't have the level of expertise. It's not within my training kind of remit to support this child who's non-speaking, developmentally working at 12 months yet is as a year one pupil. So they're trying to navigate a world that they've never come across before to the level where it's at.
Yeah, which is obviously very, very difficult.
Absolutely. So, so it's really tricky for them. And I know when I've had a good day, because I'll hear the comment, oh, this is exactly what I needed. If I'm sat with a teacher, and a lot of the time it is guiding them through that process again, holding their hands, going, I've been there, I know this is a really tricky situation, and there's got to be some level of, as much as you want to try and support everyone and fix it because that was always me.
Yeah.
Like if it, I always speak to teachers and say, if you're anything like me and you want to get it right for every single child in every single moment, you're going to burn out. So it's really key that we break it down into really manageable chunks. Like, as my role going and supporting in schools is breaking things down into manageable chunks to say, right, let's just take it one step at a time. What small thing can we achieve before I next come in and see you to support?
And so your role there is to, I guess, upskill, develop, educate teachers,
through that
coach as well, mentor. Okay, and how, obviously that's not just a one day thing, and you mentioned there next time when I come in. What does that timeline usually look like? Let's just say you're working with a school, you're working with some teachers within that school. How long do you tend to work with them or commit to working with them?
I think in terms of, you've got to give schools the chance and teachers the chance to implement what you're putting in place. So I'm always there at an email if there's something that comes up quite spontaneously and they need to sort of address it. But I usually find like a half-term instruction works best. Some schools are different and they want more of an intense package, which might mean a weekly visit. But in terms of just allowing that procedure to kind of, and what you're suggesting to kind of be implemented well and given chance to, find teething problems that worked, that didn't. There's never a quick fix sometimes. There are quick fixes.
Yes.
But a lot of the time you're trying, because you've got that level of curiosity, you're naturally trying to find and unpick and all the time, and what works well and one day might not work the other day. And also having that kind of time away allows teachers to problem solve for themselves, which is really key. So that element of that coaching role. So I'm here, I might not be able to fix that problem directly, but I can guide you in terms of you looking at how you might solve that yourself. So what you tend to find is a lot of teachers going, oh, remember what you said about that pupil, I've tried that with them and it's worked. So it's allowing them to see the links in terms of the practice and the positive reasonable adjustments that they can make within the classroom.
Great.
Then becomes, like you say, upskilling them to kind of branch that out with other pupils as well.
Great. So on that level, you're working with the school, the organisation. What would be the situation if one of those teachers that you've been working with, helping to coach, mentor, came to you on a personal level and said, actually, I would like to work with you as a bit of a one-to-one to improve for me to get where I want in my career. How does that look like? Almost a bit of tutoring?
Yeah, it hasn't come up yet.
Okay.
No, so I haven't.
But you would be willing to do that?
In terms of, definitely. In terms of supporting, teachers on a professional level, there's so much to learn and there's so much capacity. And I suppose my role within the University of Cumbria is going to sort of embody that a little bit. That little cohorts of teachers who on a one-to-one, or in a small coaching basis are going to have that opportunity to address that. But it's not something that's come up, but absolutely.
There we go. Another string to your bow.
Another string.
Okay, and on the group training side of things, we've obviously spoke about that, and what we're very, very keen on here is every single half term, apart from Christmas, we'll deliver training, and we offer online training all year round. But me personally, I think in person you just can't beat that. what should people expect if they were coming to one of your training courses? How let's just say one day, right? One day training course in half term. How would it look? A brief overview and what to expect, and what would they be leaving with?
Yeah. So I always try to keep training to sort of what key takeaways can they take away that they can go and implement, on quite a quick basis. So I think I always start with that in terms of, right, by the end of today, if you can take anything away, it's these three things. Because I think that's really key. That I think sometimes when you attend a training day, and especially when it's a full day, you can be bombarded with a lot of information. So it's breaking it down into manageable chunks. So the training day would be really scaffolded in terms of what the outcomes of the training would be. But I think it's really key that, like I say, those key takeaways that staff can take away, that they can go and implement and see the direct impact is really important. I hope they would have that kind of breadth of mind, knowledge and understanding from a Zen perspective.
Yes, yeah.
In terms of where that's coming from a psychological perspective would come through as well. But they would also have that lived and breathed, experience of myself, that I've been there. I've been in a classroom. I've been there when it's tricky, when you don't know which way to turn and who to sort out best. Yes, it's just the demands of the classroom. So they would definitely get that opportunity to hear it from a personal perspective, and try strategies that I know are proven and effective within a classroom, and take that away with them.
And how would you deliver those strategies? Would it be a bit of role play maybe on the day, or?
It's a mixture, really. So it's definitely got to be interactive in terms of, standing at the front all day is just gonna bring off people and not be effective. So it would be interactive. I love using quizzes. I'm a big fan of using online quizzes just to sort of gain understanding, gain insight. Again, role play is really key. It can make some people feel uncomfortable sometimes, so it's always supporting whoever the delegates are through, what's going to happen in the day. And this is, again, the practices that I will put in place in a classroom and try and replicate in a training environment. So do the delegates have predictability about what's going to happen? Are they scaffolded and supported? Do they have enough processing time to manage some of the demands that I'm going to put on the day? I also try to bring in a little bit of opportunity to see things from a pupil perspective. So I'll plan activities in that allow the delegates to see how that might feel for a child with said needs.
Okay, I like that. So flipping it.
Yeah, so they can there's one activity that where we trace like a star around but through a mirror.
Okay.
And you wouldn't believe how tricky it is.
Yeah.
And people start it, and some people find it easy, and some people get frustrated, and you think. And then the transference of that is, well, that's what some of our children are experiencing on an everyday basis in the classroom. So
just makes you think about that,
reflect and think. And the other thing is, there's opportunities to watch videos in terms of what that allows me to demonstrate what that looks like sometimes in practice or from other experts who are experts in certain fields. So it's got to be a real balance. In terms of everything that I would go through on a day.
Okay, great. Sounds really, really good. And 2 questions.
Yes.
What would you say to someone who has thought about getting into, Sen and that space, but hasn't got the experience, but they've just thought about it a lot? And is everyone welcome on the course, no matter their level of experience or qualification?
Absolutely. I think so I'll address the first one first.
Yes.
It's how my brain works. So the first question, just remind me, was...
So if someone's thought about getting into Sen and working in the Sen space, but they haven't done anything about it, what would you say to them? What advice would you give them?
My biggest thing would be, I'm a big advocate of reading around it and just finding it and being naturally curious around it. So seeking out those experts that know more on it would be a key starting point. We're chatting to people as well who have had that lived experience and hearing their voices. The biggest thing for me, and what I always strive to do when I'm working in a school, is the pupil voice as well. We can't ever presume or estimate what we think a child is going through or living, breathing, because actually to step into their life world, isn't possible. We can presume, but actually let's directly ask the child what's going on. So asking children would be a really key thing for me to start. But from the basis, of SEND, what I always try and do with teachers who, I've worked with a lot of ECT teachers as my role of SENCO, and I'll always start with the basis of SEND. And I think this is one thing is really positive to see, that the government is investing a lot of money into trying to SEND training at the moment. And it needs to be part of that initial teacher training. It needs to be part of wherever starting point, so what the remit of SEND covers, from what the code of practice tells you, what the 4 areas of SEND are, and unpicking that and what that looks like within a classroom. And looking at what's out there to then support. So for me, just be curious and go find out. That's where I'm naturally I go to as a person of my own accord, but I can't advocate for that enough. And then the second question that you asked.
So on the course that you're going to be delivering, is everyone welcome on that course? I've mentioned that we have a database full of people with loads and loads of experience, and some people have never worked in education. Is everyone welcome?
Absolutely. And I think it's really important to recognize, from my perspective as a trainer, is never presume what people know or don't know. And even in a day-to-day basis, I'm still writing in a support plan things that I just become natural as part of my practice, that I shouldn't presume that people know. So I always have to go back to the basics. It's really key to sort of go back there, so that even if you have a range of people who aren't even in the education and are moving into that for the first time, it's really important that they have that level of, I'm not going to feel inadequate in this. So because everyone's starting, from the same point, the level where I'm pitching it is to make sure that everyone understands it from those core philosophies of sending psychology, and that's definitely key. But
amazing.
And equally, as alongside of that as well, supporting them, there's going to be a range of adults here. So this is one of my other core values of balance, is that children with SEND grow up to be adults with SEND. And so it's really facilitating that as much as I can. And that's something that I'm pursuing more and more, is what does that look like for an adult who's moved out of education, gone through their own pathway and maybe entering the workplace, and how can that support be put in place there?
Great. No, amazing. It sounds, everything that you're doing and that you've done, the impact that you're having is just, I don't think you could even measure it. It's amazing. So thanks for sharing everything that you have shared with us. One last question that I do have before we then go into a quick fire round of 10 questions, just to finish, is what is the best part of your job for you personally?
The best part of me, for me, as my job, is knowing that impact that I'm having and seeing the direct input and changing the trajectory of a life for a child. That's kind of what drives me. Or even, a staff member that's felt underconfident, to see them go, oh, I tried this, without me prompting that. So it is absolutely about sharing my knowledge and understandings, which is epitomizing SEND, really, is allowing everyone the opportunity to thrive, and seeing that put into place in practice through what I've been able to offer as part of my business. That's the biggest thing. And seeing those moments where staff members go, oh my gosh, I just need
you can physically see it, can't you?
Physically see it, or they'll go, the lovely experience with a little boy who had sensory integration needs within a setting, and I intervened and supported, and this staff member just went, I can't believe what you've just done there, and me going, oh yeah, you did know how to sort that out. And that's the biggest thing for me, knowing the impact that it's having on children's lives, and the children that have struggled to come into different, like my school, we took on a lot of children who had negative experience of previous settings, and that was always hard to hear, was the negative experience that they'd had, and their families had and there's a real bit of potential trauma there. But seeing them through kind of using my knowledge and understanding and support within, it wasn't just me and my own, but the staff team around that, facilitating a journey where they engage within school. They saw school as a positive, safe place is just
Change their perspective.
just changed their and for some children, knowing that that's changed their trajectory on going down a pathway that might not have been the best for them. Depending on that, it's what brings it home for me.
Fantastic, thank you. Hey, quickfire round. So, are you ready?
Ready.
You ready? I think I did give you an overview of the topics we'd be covering, but I don't think I mentioned the quickfire round purposely. So here we go. Let's start with the first one. Tea or coffee to survive the school week?
It depends on the time of the day. I'm definitely a coffee person. I do normally have a brew in the morning.
Yeah.
But I like a tea at bedtime.
Yeah. Nice. So both. I like it. Okay. What's one thing that people think they know about education, but it's totally wrong?
But you get lots of holidays.
Yes. Yeah.
So I think so many people go, oh, teachers, dusting around.
Finish early, all them holidays.
My husband will advocate for this and tell you that it is not, it's a big mental,
tough work.
It's mental strain. For the holidays that you do get, yes, they are good. And, the benefit, I get to spend wonderful time with my children and family, but the amount of time that you actually put into those hours even in holidays and evenings is just, doesn't discriminate.
Yeah.
People see it as something.
Agreed. Favorite school trip you've ever been on?
Oh, it had to be like a theme park, I think, when it was 7. Yeah, I think that's,
Probably a good roller coaster.
Yeah, good.
Okay, if you could change one thing about the education system tomorrow, what would it be?
I would make sure that trauma-informed practice and understanding around neurodiversity was a core element of teacher training and beyond and ongoing.
Thank you. What was a teenage Katie like at school in one word?
Really compliant.
Okay.
We'll go with compliant.
Great student. Okay. Wrong classroom tool or strategy that every teacher should try?
Don't underestimate the use of visuals. But use visual timetables. For instance, for giving children predictability is really key. And don't underestimate that they don't need it. So even though you do it every day and you feel like somebody won't need a visual timetable, it just adds an element of predictability and structure. But
Visuals.
I'm a visual learner, so always go visuals.
And Skittles. You mentioned Skittles earlier.
Yeah. Multisensory, practical approach to learning.
Love it. Best piece of advice that you've ever been given in your career?
You create the weather. So in the remit of your classroom, the power that you hold as an educator and the words that you use that determine how children perceive themselves. And that's a really key thing for me. And it's really personal to me as well, because words are really key.
Yeah, I think you shared something on LinkedIn a couple of weeks back about words and the impact of words.
The power of words is really key. And we've got to humanize it. You mentioned before that we've got pupils. They are the humans. They're just little humans who actually need our support more than anything, not to be phones are dragged down and supported. So
absolutely. Okay, marking books or answering emails at 9 p.m, which is worse?
Marking books. Because the children aren't there, so it feels a bit of a backwards process.
Okay.
But
in 3 words, what does great education look like to you?
Okay. Question. Great education to me looks like children have the freedom to be their authentic selves without fear of judgment or the fear of being an inconvenience. And they have access to the outdoors. They have access to multi-sensory play-based approaches, no matter what their age. And they have the flexibility to pursue learning in different ways that might not look like the standardized box. And they would also be surrounded by nurturing adults who are authentic in their practice and who genuinely care for the children that they are with, and that's key for me.
Yeah, amazing. I'll take 3 sentences instead of 3 words. I like that. I like that. Okay, and then finally, for anyone listening, organisation, individual, parent, whatever it is, how can they get in touch with you if they want to after this podcast?
So I have my website that's up and available. I also have my LinkedIn profile and my Instagram account that I use to kind of promote at the moment.
Amazing. Well, what we'll do is we will put everything in the bio, tag everything so people can contact you. And we'll look forward to the training day that we'll be announcing very, very soon. But before we get to that, I just want to thank you for your time. Really, really appreciate it. Really enjoyed the conversation. Thanks for making the journey. And that's a wrap.
Thank you very much as well.
All right.
Appreciate it.
Cheers.